Hey friends, this is Waylon. I'm here with Adam Carney. We're talking about functional medicine. I don't even know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about yoga. We're going to talk about telemedicine. We're going to talk about good things and good health and good wellness. So, Adam, tell me who you are and what do you do and what the heck are we talking about?
Actually, Waylon, you and I have met before. I don't think you I don't think you remember. This was like 12 years ago in Boulder.
Really?
Yeah, we met through Alex Spaghetti.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
what?
was I was so Alex, I don't remember how I convinced him to let me do this, but it was right after he left the ad agency and he let me intern. I was like sleeping in his cottage. And I think you came over. There was like a group that came over and I think you were there. So we met.
No, for
Uh,
sure. I was over at the cottage a whole bunch.
yeah, yeah.
That's kind
Um,
of amazing. So,
okay, cool.
Adam, you still look like you're 24 or however old you were when I met you.
Thank
What the
you.
heck are you doing right? You founded two
Um,
companies, it looks like.
yeah, thanks. So, um, after I left Boulder on Alex's couch, I started a company called EAST+WEST, which um, I actually wasn't intending to start a company. I had a teacher in India that I really loved, and he like got in Indian yoga teacher training companies are like insane. He got kicked out of his company, and I, I I just decided to rent a resort in Bali for a month. Like literally, I was like, "Oh, we'll throw a party, we'll like do a retreat or something." I put all the money I had down. So in like the 6 months of waiting time between that, I like learned about digital marketing and learned about the teacher training industry. And I was like, "We'll just do one or we'll do two."
You
And
must have
was
known something. If you knew Alex, you must have had some background in
Yeah,
marketing or something.
I did, but it was never like applied. It was
Right.
always like I was like in my mind I knew a lot about marketing. But yeah, so we did the digital marketing thing, we sold it out, and then it just kind of snowballed, and we kept selling out trainings and kept going and kept going. And yeah,
Well,
to be honest with you, that's
but slow down there. So you rent this place for a month. How old are you at the time?
27,
And you're
27.
just renting it for your teacher who got kicked out of his business?
Yeah, I just like it was such an irrational thing to do. Like I really didn't have a plan. I had spent a lot of time in Bali and I kind of wanted to be there more. So I was like, yeah, I'll bring my family, I'll invite my friends. That was like literally the plan at the time.
And my invitation, yeah, I failed to check the email.
No, I didn't know you that well. If I didn't think you would come, I didn't
Yeah.
think you would have actually come if I
No,
invited
I
you.
definitely wouldn't have. I would have been like, "Oh, that sounds amazing. I need to work night and day on elephant. Can't can't, can't have a life."
By
But
the way,
so
are you someone who likes being interrupted and interrupting others? Because I do. I talk about this with my girlfriend. I think conversations are really boring if you're not interrupting each other. So I just wanted to like check in on
I've
that.
literally I'm staring at a couch where I sit at night and watch a movie or stuff. I've argued with my ex, now my ex, sadly, who is wonderful, countless times about that. So
Yes.
a conversation is give and take with listening
Yes.
involved, but you can't interrupt. I don't love the interrupt thing
Okay.
because I think interrupt implies that you're not listening and that it's like a monologue that you're interrupting. A conversation is not two monologues.
Right.
We
Yeah, I think
are,
there's a fine line. But
yeah,
I was saying that to let you know that if you want to interrupt me, you can because
I,
I don't mind it.
I will
Please
because
do.
a talk show, which this originally was and whatever it is now, is give and take. I do have to
Yeah.
listen, and you're welcome to interrupt me if I don't listen.
So with your girlfriend, were you the one that was advocating for less interruption or more interruption?
I was the one advocating for a third way where we were not interrupting
Yeah.
each other, but we were give and take, what you would call interruption, a conversation
Okay. Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
forth.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I
I like
do
that
understand
third
that
way.
some people who are more maybe introverted, some people are, struggle to feel heard,
Yeah.
um, do feel more comfortable getting it all out at once.
Right.
But that's not a great way to have a conversation because what if I say 12 different points? You have to
Yeah.
take notes.
That sounds like the third way. That sounds like a good name for a show or like or a movie or something.
There needs to be three of me.
Yeah.
My nickname is Way, yeah. Um,
um,
but yeah, so I do have questions. So,
yeah.
so you do this 1 month thing. How did that then become the business? That's so interesting.
Yeah. So when you understand, I think, the science of digital marketing, I think this is so fascinating because in today's world, when all you have to do is do something really small. You have to show a small win in digital marketing, and you can know exactly how big the company is going to be. And so I took like a month of marketing testing, which was, by the way, like the first time that I had ever done this. And it's funny because people kind of know me in the industry as being like the digital marketing guy, but I literally learned it in this process of just from need. So you take like a month of marketing tests, and then you can extrapolate exactly how big your company is going to be, like to not exactly, but with a high degree of precision. And so, yeah, I knew in like after like a month, we hadn't even run a training yet. I knew we were going to be one of the largest yoga teacher training companies in the world within like 2 years, and it happened in like 15 months. And that's all just from the math of the company. Yeah.
And you knew that, yeah, exactly. Based on, and what was the math? How many people came to that first one? Or
yeah, it's like how much you're paying per customer. It's really simple. Like it takes like 30 minutes to really understand. It's like what you're paying per customer, and then how many people are signing up, and how many spots do you need to fill, and then how many people like are actually searching for that thing. And that's kind of how you get the scale, because you could find a win in something that's really small. And so what you look for is like a win in something that's like really, really, really big, which is what wisdom is.
That's so interesting. And the hard part, which is also the easy part, is just jumping in and doing it and learning as you go. And you're now revered as like the digital marketing expert, but really you just jumped in and figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like I had some like philosophical background understanding of it. But that anyone could learn that in an hour online. But you have to be in the arena, like you have to be in the arena testing, because there's so much nuance to it. And so much tedium. Like I spend like so many of my hours, like way more hours of the day than I ever want to, just crunched over, like looking at, Facebook ads and, making little changes to the campaigns like constantly. And that's what it is. Right. And to me, that's like, that's one of the challenges of being like a wellness entrepreneur. I think a lot of people run into this is like, you graduate from some sort of program and you come with all this energy. And then the reality of it is to succeed in today's world, you kind of have to do digital marketing. Like there's not really many ways around that.
I think,
and so
I've had a long string of like failed relationships based on people thinking because of elephant in my personality, perhaps, that I'm interesting. But then when they start dating me, they realize that I'm just sitting crouched over my laptop.
Yeah.
I'm not even doing sophisticated stuff like you are. I have Shannon, who I think you know, and and Lindsay and other people who are more sophisticated than me, but I'm doing my own stuff like that. And meanwhile I'm just aging. Like if it was one of those like 1940s time travel movies, I'm just turning old Well,
I really appreciate your compliment in the beginning, because I feel like this really old, like cynical man inside who's like very like calcified and my solution to that problem was that I brought my girlfriend in. So she started a program. Now she's on her computer all day too, and we're both like, great. Now we get each other.
It's like the unsexy version of like, the climber couples or the biking couples.
Right. We're like the old, like we have terrible posture. Yeah. I have a question for you. Is it okay if I ask you questions?
Yeah, I love this. You're like such a fun conversationalist. I think you need to invite your girlfriend to watch this and see how fun it can be just to go back and forth and have chaos.
I invited my mom. I don't know if she's here, but hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom. My mom never watches my Instagram lives.
We'll message her about that. I'm curious, like, what type of leader are you? Because like obviously you've built this like really cool property that almost everyone I know knows about it, and has like had a lot of success. Like, how would you describe yourself as a leader?
You mean of my team or of the business?
Either.
Of my team, I would describe myself as, I actually literally last week described myself as like 40% wildly incompetent and awful, 40% mediocre but well-intentioned, and 20% brilliant and really good at it.
And what's the brilliant part?
I'm a good entrepreneur. I'm good at working hard and caring and mission and leading forward. Like in a battle, I would be great because I would be like George Washington or whatever on the horse in the front, and I'd probably get shot in the first battle. But I'm an awful manager, and I did get better. That's the mediocre part. I got better, but I'm not fundamentally good at it, or I'm sorry if some of my team are listening, but I'm not honestly that interested in meetings or management. And then the awful part is that too. It's just that I'm not good at it.
Well, a couple things. One, I find like it's not, I don't, as someone who's like trying to live like a good life holistically, I find it really not fun to have power over people. Some people like really like that. I hate that feeling. And actually, like for me, I just don't like that dynamic when I can see someone comes into the room and they're forgetting my humanity and they see me as this like overlord. I'm like, no, I feel really weird in that situation. Well, I feel that in you too.
That's such a, like, you're kind of giving yourself the biggest compliment in 2023, because not in a vain way, but like, as we saw from Me Too and top down power dynamics, or even bottom up, is fundamentally messed up.
Yeah, it is, because it's like we're just humans, and like humans have different skills.
Yeah.
And like some skills are more I don't want to say that they're not more valuable. They're more like, some are more valuable in the context of the economy right now. And so those rise to leaders, but like, we're still humans. And I think I don't know if you have this, but like, I'll see situations all the time. Like there's such bad narratives culturally, like around leaders. As soon as somebody like gets successful, like we forget their humanity. I'm not saying we have to agree with all their decisions, but like we hate on people that, and in some instances it's justified, but I don't know. I just think we forget humanity. Like, we forget when we look at big leaders, they're like, oh, this is a human being, and they have mistakes too. And, theirs are getting, projected onto a large company, which is kind of unfortunate. But the other thing I was going to say.
Well, before you move on,
allow
me to interrupt and agree with you, which is like in Buddhism, we call it theism. I mean, outside of Buddhism, it's called theism as well. But in the Buddhist tradition, theism is saying, I'm awful, I'm not that good, someone's in charge, someone's greater, someone's better than me, and we kind of worship them. And then the cycle is, whenever they manifest humanity, like they yell at someone, or they're late, or they make a mistake, then we hate them.
That's right. That's right.
And we go to destroy them. And in Buddhism, we're non-theistic. So the Buddha himself was a human being who pooped and peed and, probably farted, and, it's all fine. It's okay. Yeah. We're all human. It doesn't mean that some people don't have more power or can't be respected in a good way. Like, I respect Jane Goodall. There's people who I look up to as examples of humanity. But we just did a huge interview today about the Dalai Lama with an activist lady, and we're all human. Without getting into that rabbit hole, we need to stop worshiping rock stars, politicians, gurus, etc.
Dalai Lamas, yeah.
Dalai Lama himself is like, I'm just a simple monk.
Right. Yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to say about that when you were talking about like your leadership percentages.
Just the mediocre, the awful, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, kind of.
Here's one other observation I've had is that I think in our culture we tend to overestimate the like inherent leadership qualities of like being a good speaker, or like, being able to stand up on stage. I think we overestimate how important those are. And we underestimate how important it is for someone who's just like obsessed with something. It's someone who's like obsessed with something and just like works on it obsessively. It doesn't matter if you're like, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how good of a communicator you are. Like and we're in an interesting situation right now where like the richest people in the world are like super freaking awkward, but it's because the leaders in our world are just obsessed with stuff, and they work on it constantly. And it's like, I don't know, that's an empowering thought to me, because I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people think like they can't be a leader because they don't communicate articulately or they
Yeah.
don't present a certain way. I certainly felt like that for like a long, long time. But really, like you gain confidence by just getting obsessed with something, learning a lot about it, and being able to speak about it with confidence. And so, and people gravitate towards that. Yeah.
I'm interested. We're totally off on our own subject, but I'm kind of loving
Yeah.
this, which is if we replace the term leadership with excellence in whatever we
Yeah.
did,
Exactly.
because a lot
Exactly.
of my, when you said
I love
obsession, like
that.
a lot of my favorite human beings on this planet doing the best work, having the best companies. I just interviewed Kevin Fall, who's the founder of Conway Electric and some other companies. Conway Electric is making these gorgeous outlets and power cords and lamps and stuff all made in the US. No plastic, no PVC, like old school manufacturing.
Yeah.
But it's super cool, and he pays everyone well, and blah blah blah. He's obsessed, and he's a crafts person. Is he good at public speaking? Who cares, right?
Right.
He probably, maybe he is, but it's irrelevant.
Right.
And so I love that. I am good at speaking. I do have a good presence, but I'm actually much worse. Just to agree with what you said, none of that means that I'm at all good at being in a meeting.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
But I'm obsessed. But I'm obsessed with my craft, which is curiosity, journalism, writing, speaking. Talking with people,
right.
caring about the world, climate crisis, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I was just reading about your history of like deep history is like Buddhism and journalism, and like your whole family and everyone's like weaving in between those two forces, which I think is interesting. That like I always tell people like you're building a business is like the best form of personal work because you're constantly seeing all of your subtle characteristics projected onto whatever's going on. So like when we really started to grow with EAST+WEST, like after about a year, I was feeling like not great inside. And I was like, oh, what is that? And I was like, oh yeah, we're doing really well. Everything, like the marketing is good. Like we're signing up a lot of people. But I was like, we've gotten into this period where we're like unhappy because we're stressed and we're too like focused. And I'm like, oh, that's a quality of mind. And that's being projected out into this environment and culture.
Good for you though, having that, good for you taking that step back and like looking like what is happening here? How are we taking the temperature?
Yeah, it's the same thing as being like, I make art too. And it's like the same thing as being an artist. It's like you can learn about your subtle qualities by what you project on a canvas. The same thing is happening in whatever we create, if you're willing to see it that way. And it gives you these like really intense reflections, which is why like, I think building a business is like really like the best. Building a business and being in a relationship are the two best ways to absolutely abolish your ego. Because the moment you have like an idea of how something should go, you're immediately going to be met with reality and why, that's not always going to be the case.
But what do they call it? Like it's confirmation bias, or like when someone wins the lottery, they're like this, I forget what it's called, but I feel like because there is a part of your character that wants to grow as a human being and be a good person.
Right.
And a lot of people get involved in business, want to be rich, want to be famous, want to whatever. They're not curious about that. So I actually would say business can be a vehicle for ego as well.
Yeah, I think it certainly can be. And I think that can also be taken as a reflection.
Right.
That can be reflected in a company. Like if you see, you can see it everywhere. Like if there's ego in the leader, there's going to be ego in the company, right?
You just self-censored a name that was about to come out. You can see it and everyone visualizes Elon Musk. Everyone in the world is like Elon Zuckerberg, and you're like,
I have a different view on them. And we don't need to go on that tangent. Yeah. But I do.
All right, let's bring it back.
Let's bring it back.
EAST+WEST. So where is EAST+WEST now today?
Yeah, EAST+WEST, like driving. We're still running trainings in Bali. We came back after COVID. We went online in COVID, and it was like a couple tough years, but we got through it. And yeah, we're back. We're running trainings in Bali. Like all our trainings are sold out for the next few months. Again, we just opened in Costa Rica. So you can take
it all yoga, or is it like yoga, meditation?
Yeah, we do
nature.
I mean, in a 200-hour teacher training, I don't know if you know about this format, but you're doing all of it. So you're doing like 12 hours a day. So yeah, there's like an hour of meditation a day. You'll do like
Yeah.
4 hours of yoga a day. You're eating 3 like vegan meals a day in the most beautiful place in the world. So yeah, it's my inspiration for wisdom was just seeing actually how many people reversed incurable conditions on our training. It's crazy, like insomnia, anxiety, all sorts of
Yeah.
digestive things. Like go down like it's not only that they reverse them. It's like almost how quickly they do it in that environment. And that was really illuminating for me. And so
Yeah.
the realization was like, oh, if put in the right environment, people can reverse chronic health
Yeah.
issues like really quickly. So that's really what inspired
Yeah. From
wisdom
some
and getting into
people,
functional medicine.
from some people, good connection there. So for some people, I would say like that's woo-woo thinking, but coming from you, and the retreats, you're like, that's a
Well,
grounded thing. Cause
well, but think about it like this though.
yeah,
If you're born healthy, which not everyone is, but if you're born healthy and then you get to age 40 and suddenly you have a chronic disease, you develop autoimmunity, that condition, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. Everything in the universe is subject to the laws of cause and effect, right? And chronic disease is no exception. It has causes. It's just that the causes are usually these like really subtle things that are happening over the course of time. And it's usually things that people, it's usually the things that people are just doing every day that cause us some degree of discomfort that eventually surface later on. And so, yeah, for me personally, I guess that's why I'm like in this, but I really believe like it's not woo at all. I think it's literally just like
yeah,
cause and effect, which is not true of all disease, but chronic diseases are unique because they come from our lifestyle and our environment. And so, knowing that by definition, every chronic disease on earth, just about a couple exceptions, is reversible, meaning it's possible to reverse. And so seeing people in that environment where it is like a curated sort of perfect environment, like how easy it was for people to do that, it just showed me anyway, like how possible it really is, where other people would believe that it's not possible. Yeah.
So do you feel, so I always think of that quote, I think it's like, Krishnamurti or someone, the quote is, it's no measure of health to be healthy in a society.
Yeah, it's like to be well adjusted to
there you go.
A society that is profoundly sick is no measure of health.
And I love that quote because, you should probably use that in your marketing, because there is this notion of like, oh, if you get outside of, your kind of chronic unhealthy lifestyle, you can very quickly kind of reset. Sorry, I have to plug in. I have to plug into my Conway electric power cord.
Nice.
So
shout out. Put their Instagram handle up here.
Yeah. But here's like a slightly cynical, critical question from an eco boy.
Please.
So probably like you, and I'm only going to give it to you because I think you can handle it and you've deeply thought about it.
Oh, I can handle it. Give it to me.
Which is part of what's chronically unhealthy about this world is we're destroying it, we're exploiting it.
Yeah.
And that affects us. We're part of nature. So flying all over the world all the time, how do you work with that? Do you do offsets? Do you think about that? And do you guilt trip yourself? Do you avoid thinking about it? What do you do?
Yeah, good question. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying like there's some degree of like privilege in this statement I'm about to make, and I'm going to acknowledge that. But I'm still going to make it because I think it's important. The world is like stacked against us, right? When it comes to our health. Environment aside for now, I'll answer that next. But the world, everything is stacked against us in being healthy, right? So you walk in the grocery store and like 95% of the aisle is things that it's not processed food, right? So the context is really, really, really hard to be healthy. However, for those that really learn deeply about health, it is actually the best time to be alive. Because, I had an ashwagandha latte this morning, with Manuka honey. And that's stuff that's only available to kings and queens, in the past. And so it's like, I'm writing a book that's coming out next month. And in it, one of the sections is like acknowledging that it is, in one sense, the hardest time to be healthy. But it's like almost when you get over that hump and you get super clear on what you need to do, you can make any city into a personal wellness resort. Like I could call an acupuncturist here in 30 minutes to do a session for me and then follow that up with a yin yoga class. It's like the access to stuff is also there. And so that's working in our favor. So I think, and that's important.
It was the best. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
It was the best times. It was the worst times. And so, I think once you like wake up to that, I think that like, I know a lot of people that are just thriving. You know,
Boulder's full of them. I mean, Boulder is like full of like, people are like, oh, I have a lunch break. I'm going to bike up to Gold Hill, you know, up on top of the mountain. I'm going to go to a yoga class. I'm going to, you know, go to Bali or Costa Rica or whatever it is. I'm going to go to Wonder and buy a $15, you know, ashwagandha latte with local honey, you know, for
I guess I've chosen to live in that reality where like the appreciation of the access. And I think it's not only with health stuff too, like, you know, I took a class on how to, like on writing from Malcolm Gladwell on masterclass. Like just the access to stuff now is like so amazing. And I really appreciate that about this time on earth. And I think it's like a really cool time to be alive for that reason.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
He's like one of my 5 favorite writers.
Have you done his masterclass?
No.
That took my writing from like 4 to an 8 in like 3 hours. Seriously, like the best.
I do. I worship
class.
him. One of my other favorite writers is Michael Pollan, who just came to mind when you mentioned, you know, the reality for many of us, whether we're privileged or not, is we're being marketed 24/7. We're being, you know, pushed with this processed food and plastic packaging and, you know, sugar and grease and all that.
I haven't really gone so deep with him.
Oh man,
the other part that you brought
Michael
up was
Pollan. That guy is like, whoo.
The other part that you brought up was like, you kind of asked about like how I sit with the environmental stuff. And yeah, there was a time for me, like when I was living in Bali, this was like 5-6 years ago. I took the route of like not buying anything. Like I just started, like, I didn't own anything. I owned nothing. I sold all my stuff, owned as little as possible. And that was my solution. And I don't know, that didn't feel great to me. I hadn't really thought about it though, but actually something really, when I moved back to the US, I realized when I was on mushrooms once, that I wasn't planning to have kids because I was afraid about the environment. I was like, that was actually the reason, like deep down underneath that fear, I really wanted to have kids and I really wanted to have a family. And something really shifted for me in that moment. I just decided not to live in that sort of like fear and dread of what's coming. And I think that's a fine line between like not doing anything. If I'm being honest, like I don't put enough of that's not something I think about now. I think about health, and I think I've kind of decided that the problem I'm going to help with is chronic disease. And I feel like my company's like doing that in a really unique and awesome way. And the sustainability thing is like definitely on my priority list is taking a back burner. So yeah, that's my answer.
I like the honesty because I think, you know, I think 2 things. One is the Buddhist notion of natural hierarchy is that all of us find our craft or our obsession, our place where we can be a benefit, our path. So that's real. And I not only acknowledge that, but like, you know, applaud you in that. But the second thing is, you know, you can refuse to get to-go coffee, which is plastic lined cups. You can, you know, never buy new crappy plastic, you know, 90% of clothing now has plastic in it. You know, everything I wear is like secondhand, and it's not about Portlandia, like, oh, I'm so special. But it's about like, you know, it's about your children. It's about like, I want to give a world that isn't burning and flooding and, you know, breaking to our children.